There we go.
Click.
Okay. Anything else, brother, before we go?
That is it, man.
Man, I'm really pumped for this. Just so you know.
Sweet.
Yeah. All right, here we go. Oh, let me make sure my mic's good. Sounds all right on your end?
Yeah, it sounds great.
All right, here we go. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. I've got Dan Martell here today. I'm thrilled for this conversation. Many of you who are listening will know who Dan is, but for those of you who don't, a little context on his life. And this is out there. You can go find a deeper dive to this story. But when Dan was 14, he ended up in a foster care system. At 15, in a car chase, the police were after him. There was a handgun inside and plans to end his life. There was rehab, there was prison, and then there was learning to code. And then there was successfully building and exiting 3 companies within a 10-year period. And then naturally becoming arguably the world's top SaaS coach for CEOs. In fact, I was thinking this morning about, we have several Front Row Dad members that are in your community. And it's fun to hear about you from them. Even though I have a relationship to you directly, it's fun when people talk about how great you are. And not just in business, Dan, but in all areas of life. And specifically, as we believe here, the most impressive part of your resume is your marriage and your kids, which, by the way, how old are they now?
9 and 10, and they're 11 months apart, Irish twins.
9 and 10. And you managed to squeeze in other things like you're an Ironman triathlete. Whenever I see you on social, you're doing something fun. You're outdoors. And in many ways, you lead a life that, for me, is inspiring because it's not just your business success, which is wildly impressive, but it's the fact that you're able to do these other things too, that it's why I wanted to have this conversation. When you wrote this book, Buy Back Your Time, I had this thought internally that I'm now going to voice externally. I was sitting on my couch and I thought, this could be the most important book ever written for entrepreneurs, because it is the single most important thing we talk about in Front Row Dads. So as we have 6 pillars in Front Row Dads, the obvious ones being parenting and marriage, there is a business evolution pillar, but it's not, hey, how do you grow your business by 30% so that you can say you did it? But how do we evolve a business so that we buy back our time, so that we can show up in the areas of life that matter most? And on a very personal level, Dan, when I look back over my journey as an entrepreneur, building businesses, specifically Front Row Dads, what's interesting is I remember trying to figure out how to be a better dad in the times that I was present with my family. And what I realized was what I needed to do is be a better businessman, because I was bringing home the worst version of myself for my family. So while I'm sitting there trying to practice meditation techniques to play army men with Ocean and how do I drop in and be present, I realized the real problem was that I wasn't operating effectively in my business. And then my family was suffering the consequence of what was really lazy systems and lazy approaches, which I then decided I was just going to work my ass off to overcome my inability to build the right systems. And everything you wrote about in the book. So I'm listening to it, everybody. I've got 1 hour and 18 minutes left. I had a goal to get it done before this, but I had a day. The book just launched. So everything I'm hearing about, from the administrative assistants to the 4 C's of leverage, I've got all my notes right here, right? And there's so many things that you said, and the playbooks and all of it. I just kept thinking, this is what our community needs. This is what the world needs. And this is the message that I want to stand behind. So a lengthy intro, Dan, but it's not only do I want people to know about you, but I wanted you to know how much this book has impacted me and how important I think it is. So I'm going to be talking about this a lot because, and I'm not saying that out of fluff or out of loyalty to a friendship with you, but because I literally just listened to the book and it is amazing. And I'm really happy that you put it together. It's really cool. And you did some commentary after each chapter, which was badass. So anyway, man, props to you. Welcome to the show. Thank you for all the work you've done.
You just won the award for best hype intro ever. Now I have to somehow live up to that. But here's the thing, John, is like the reason why I was so excited to talk to you in this community is like you guys represent what I believe in my soul and my heart. And like I just don't think success is a financial success, although I wish it for everybody. Like I wish people have it in abundance. I think about this often, right? It's one of those things where people say it's not about the money until you have the money. Like it's hard to know that it's not about the money, right? It's hard to know that like working out is not about your physical body. It's really for your mind. And then you get into this like headspace. And once you get that, then you're like, oh, I work out for my mind. The body's a byproduct, right? Like, and you know, all the stuff we do, and this is the crazy part, dude. It's like people say, well, I do it for my family. I do it. I'll tell you this quick story, man, because it broke my heart. A friend of mine one time, he heard me sharing some of these philosophies I talk about in the book. And it took him probably 12 years in business to finally get to understand it. Again, it's like, until you go through it, it's hard to learn to surf reading a book, right? So sometimes you have to go through life if you don't have, you know, a strong group of mentors and folks like yourselves. And he called me up because he wanted to share with me just how profound some of the stuff I'd been sharing at that point had on his life. And he tells me this story that he was probably like 5-6 years into their business, and they had a retail business, and bad decisions on leases, bad stock decisions just caused them to be in a world of pain. It happens quick, man. I've seen a lot of great people, COVID, you know, just bad partners. It just, boom, it goes from great to bad. And he sits down with his wife. He's telling me this. And his kids were probably 3 and 4, like 2 and 3, like little toddlers. And he says to her, like, I know how to fix this, but it's going to require me not being home, and you won't see me in the morning and I won't be home, but I'm going to go fix this. And I'm doing it for us. And he said for a 3-year period, he didn't see his family. And that just like, when he shared that with me, I was like, fuck, dude, they didn't ask you for that, man.
Yeah.
They didn't ask you for that. And it didn't take you 3 years to fix it. You got into it and you couldn't get out of it.
That was it. And dude, that was me. That's why I started Front Row Dads, because it was one more season for me. It was always like, I got to get through this one season.
The next thing. And
it's
addictive, man, because it feels good too. Like success and progression feels good. Like
totally.
I even with the book launch, dude, I'll be honest with you. I told you, you know, last night I kind of passed out at 9 o'clock because I woke up at 3:30 for the launch. And like, I saw myself go back to these old habits.
Yeah.
Of like just being in the thing. And, you know, yesterday morning, kids are like, you know, my videographer Sam's here, and they're like, hockey time. And I almost said no. And I was like, no, fuck it. I like literally went and played hockey for 20 minutes downstairs.
Yeah.
Ran upstairs, screamed at my wife, babes, can you make me breakfast? And it's funny because this morning I did the same thing because I like playing hockey in the morning. And just because of all the interviews, and I'm infringing on my perfect week. Right. But again, I also know that there's moments, okay, but not seasons. See, that's the thing. It's like, this is a week. This is not a quarter. Right. And I screamed at her. I said, you know, babes, can you make me breakfast? Because I was running out from the gym and I had a call in 18 minutes. And she goes, but yesterday you didn't like it. I was like, it's because I didn't have time to eat it. I ate only half, and she thought I didn't like it. I'm like, no, I loved it. I just literally. So I share that because like, even in these moments where you think you're there, like I was playing hockey, and dude, I got on camera. If you watch my Instagram, like I'm really impressed with my soft hockey, whatever that's called, skills lately. Mentally, I wasn't there.
Yeah.
And it sounds crazy. I hope, because I just know the difference. Because normally I do when I leave my office, I have this routine, and we can talk about like just how I shut down. I know I'm mentally present. So you can be physically with somebody. And this happens even on camera. You see people that are doing YouTube videos and you're like, you're not there.
Yeah.
Like you're so nervous, you're in your head, and man, your kids feel that energy. So yeah, I played some hockey, but I also knew personally, like I wasn't there the way I normally would be. And it was because it's such a abnormal thing for me that I felt it and I totally resonate, because that used to be me when I was in my mid-20s, why I was engaged to somebody who decided to say, I'm not doing this with you. And why, when my buddy told me his story, I was just so hurt, because I was like, they never asked you for any of this. My kids just want to play hockey with me.
Yeah.
And have me fully present when they're telling me their ridiculous stories about their day.
So I got a bite on the, hey, how do you transition? Because that's a big topic of moving from one space to another. And you gave a great example, by the way, of multitasking in the book, which I won't spoil, but that was genius. So anyway, talk to me about your transition. What does that schedule look like of how you get present?
It's very simple, because I used to have a hard time sleeping, right? When you're building, a business, like, it's intoxicating, man. It feels so good. It feels fun, especially like I went from 17 years old after rehab all the way to 24, meaningfully trying, like, not just like side hustle. I had a full-time job, like full-time focus on business, and failed again. So I had 2 failed companies over that period. And then I'm on my 3rd one. And what changed, I hired a business coach, this guy named Bob. He was an E-Myth coach. I read the book, The E-Myth, and I was like, that's got to be it. And so what happened is, like, very quickly, I started to see results. And then it's like, I was like, oh, I want more of that. Right. And I'm getting the praises from my coach. I'm getting, I'm looking at my bank account, and like, we ended up building this multi-million-dollar company. I'm 24. We did about almost $1 million the first year, and then just doubled every year for 4 years. And I became addicted and intoxicated to that. It also meant I'm the guy that showed up at a birthday party, my best friend Nick's birthday party at his house, with my laptop, and thought that was absolutely normal. Right. Like, he, if you talk to him, he's like, dude, you were like the worst human to be friends with at that point. And I was like, I'm sorry. Like, with enough time I could see, and then, coming home one day and finding my fiance in tears in the kitchen, and just drops the ring and says, I'm not doing this. I can't do this. And she leaves, like 7 weeks before the wedding.
Yeah.
And so, like, I totally get it, but there's a different way. Right. And I figured it out because I am a builder, right? John, if you follow me long enough, like, I just create. I love to create. Yes, the book, but I'm also the CEO of 2 8-figure companies. Like, I run, like you said, the largest SaaS company for CEO coaches and high-speed ventures, where it's my investment vehicle, where I've invested in companies, like 50 plus companies. Like, so, like, I literally run 2 teams. They're totally separate. And I have time for my family. Like, we have dinner every night. And so I had to, like, build the structure to support it, because there was a 6-month period when I was, after that, my fiance left me when I was 28, where I honestly had a out loud conversation with my therapist about me, just maybe my destiny is to never be in a relationship. I'm going to be the fun uncle. I'm going to go build businesses. And that's what I'm signed up for. Because I just couldn't figure out how. So long-winded answer to how do I disconnect? A long time ago, when I was going through that period, I couldn't sleep. I had a hard time sleeping. My brain would just go, right? And I've read over 1,500 business books over the years, and like, I was like deep into productivity, because that's what happened then. In that company, I was incredibly efficient. Okay, but I had 30 people on the team. They all reported to me.
Yeah,
I was productive, dude. I was like a machine. No idea about leverage. So, but what happened is, because I couldn't sleep and it was messing with my ability to create and be creative. I learned this technique to just have a journal next to my bed, to just dump.
Yeah.
So anytime I'd wake up and I was tossing and turning, I just turned the light on next to my bed and I would just dump. I would just, whatever I was tossing and turning about, that to do, I forgot to follow up with, the person I need to have a conversation with, a project I meant to start that I did, whatever it is, I just dumped it out. And I started sleeping like a baby. So then I just started doing that before I went to bed. So, like, I'd open up this journal, I'd write down a bunch of stuff, and then I would sleep the night.
Yeah.
So what happened is, I took that process into my work. So at the end of my day, 4:45, before I'm done around 5, sometimes I finish at like 3 or 4, but I also start early. Like, it's funny because I'm not a 4-hour work week guy, right? The subtitle is Build Your Empire. Now, my world at Empire is a life of unlimited creation that you never have to retire from. So it doesn't mean revenue or team size or anything. It's the ability to create with abundance. What happens now is at the end of my day, I have this. It's literally so basic that I think people will be like, "Is that it?" Yeah, that's it. I only get emails in my inbox that my executive assistant can't process. And that's very few these days because she's been working with me for a really long time. I teach the whole process in, I think it's chapter 6, Clone Yourself. I even give the email structure. I give the meeting structure. Like I wanted to give that because it literally, it can transform your life. So because I only have like, probably at the end of the day, I may have 8 emails, okay, that I haven't processed or whatever. All I do is I take those and I put them into a Google Doc and I link up. I'm a big fan of linkability. It's one of our core communication kind of rules. And I link up to the email and I just write the to-do, what it is. Like reply to Patrick, my finance guy, and about this. And I link it and I put it to the email. And then I look at my calendar and I see if there's groupings of tasks. And then I just copy them and I put them into the calendar in the description because they're linked up and it's HTML. My Google Mail, it just like, it creates a to-do list with the link to the thing you got to do, which is awesome. And then I'll just write in the to-do. So it's always like anything I could put in for block time, I do if I have windows. If not, I leave it on there. I reprioritize the list a little bit and I add anything that I didn't see. And then I shut my laptop. And
you feel complete.
Fuck, super complete. Like,
yeah,
because I also have this belief that like, whatever it's going to be, it's going to be. I showed up, I played full out. I gave it everything. I followed the buyback principle. I've looked for leverage. I audit my time because I've done all that. I've put everything out on the field of play with the time I've decided a long time ago that I'm going to allocate for this endeavor. And then, I have these 3 things. I call them the business fundamentals. These are my rules. I don't break my business fundamentals. I don't break my commitment to others, and I don't break my success habits. So if you go, Dan, I want you to come do this thing, I would go, first off, does that infringe on any of these? If yes, the answer is no. Like, because like I've already decided I've been doing. So the thing is, everything I'm sharing is based on pain. Like I've broken these rules, right? The where the 3 came from is like, I only did 1, business fundamentals. And then I had pain. And then I was like, okay, well, what was the pain from? Okay, commitment to others. Then I had pain. And then it was like, okay. And then I had more pain. It's like, oh yeah, success habits. Like I don't want to get fat. Like the go adding 15 pounds, losing 15 pounds, adding 50 pounds, losing, like I did that for a really long time, 15, 20 pounds. Like, and I was just like, I don't want to do that anymore. Like, this is the realization. A long time ago, I realized, wouldn't it be cool if I just like was in shape the way I always want to be always? Because it's, if you ever read The Compound Effect or other books like The Slight Edge or whatever, it literally is so wasteful to go up and down. It's way easier to just maintain, and you just got to make a commitment to sustain. So that's where all these philosophies came from. But that's how I finished my day, shut it down, and I'm totally disconnected from work now. And I'm 100% present. Now I have the privilege of having an executive assistant and a whole team that if there was ever a fire, which I can't even think of in the last 3 years where they ever had to call me, they can just call me. And because I know that, because I know somebody's monitoring my inbox, they're monitoring our customers, or like, you know what I mean? I don't have to like sit there worrying about like, what if the thing doesn't ship to the event and then we don't have a stage or something stupid? Like, I don't worry about that stuff.
The book is filled with frameworks and examples. Just like you were talking about with the email, it's like, here's how you have your administrative assistant handle your email, handle your calendar. There's so much of that in the book, your strategy on playbooks, like, right. My question is, how much of all of this that's in the book is Dan Martell kind of info sponging from the world, to quote my buddy, Jeff Hoffman, just taking all of this and you're not even sure what you took from where, but it just came out of you, right? Like, this is it. These are the 3 things, like what you just said, right? These are the 3 things I never break. And how much of your world is like, I'm good at taking something that's already been built. I take it, I implement it. I don't really feel the need to edit, right? I don't feel the need to make adjustments to that. I'm more the type of guy who like grabs EOS and I run it as is. Or do you read EOS and go, I'm going to put the Dan Martell spin on it because I also read these other 5 books and I'm going to create my own system.
So 100% built. I'm a remix, right? Built by the community. Like, you know, as our friend Jason Gaynor would say, like but here's the thing is, so I'm a big fan, right? Model, don't modify. Cause I coach this, right? It freaking annoys me when people are like, I don't think we're a magical snowflake. It's like, you are not different. You are a SaaS company. You smell like a SaaS company. You look like the fundamentals are the fundamentals. But so, cause I always like, I have coaches. So like, I always take their coaching as prescribed. And then as I do it and I learn the feedback and the mechanism, the principles, I mean, I'm just, because I have so many other data points to pull from, other frameworks, other strategies, I always tweak them. Like, I mean, I can tell you probably where the 2 or 3 things that influence that, like the folder structure, getting things done. Big part of like, even the concept of allocation of information into a bucket is David Allen's getting things done. Yep. But if you look at my structure and what he teaches, they're completely different for the use case, right? And I every part of this is a remix, but I will tell you 100%, I just follow everything first till I get a result. I don't mess with it because I used to do that, and that's I think where people get in trouble. So I really hope if people are inspired by the book, like, and as I've been teaching this for 14 years. Okay. Like I started teaching this to the CEOs of the companies I invested in as a way to add value.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'll tell you the one thing that I think is incredibly different and unique is the idea of the buyback principle, which is you don't hire people to grow your business. You hire people to buy back your time. If you do the second, you get the first, but you don't get the second if you do the first only. Yeah. And if you don't understand the drip matrix of like lights you up and makes you money, then it's very easy to buy back your time to end up having a calendar full of stuff that just crushes you. And actually you make less money. Like that's the thing. Like that philosophy is I haven't heard it anywhere else. That's why I had to write the book. The other stuff I felt you could have pulled from other places or whatever, but each one of them, I have a very unique perspective on it. And everything in the book I do today. I will show you, dude, I got 2 cameras on me right now. You want to talk about camcorder method?
Yeah.
Because they're always going, because I might teach something that I want to like give to my executive leadership team. I don't want to sit down and have to create a training and a playbook. I literally just tell my videographer, Sam, to clip that and send it to these 3 people. Right. Yeah. So like everything's a remix. The unique perspective, I think, though, is the idea of the drip matrix, because I truly believe you can build an empire and actually have an incredibly high quality of life. Like that's like, I know it, I see it, I coach my clients on it, I see the impact of their lives. You can absolutely, because people just have this belief, if I grow my business, my life is gonna be hard.
Yeah.
And yes, if you don't follow the methodology. Right. If you're just honest about it and you do the time and energy audit and you transfer things off your plate and you hire people honoring the buyback rate, it's mathematically impossible for you to screw it up. That's why I had to write the book, because I know I've been talking for a long time, John. Here's the thing that like I didn't know, because like I've been teaching this stuff, I've been modeling this stuff. It's just like my best friends. Okay. Literally, I live in Kelowna, and like Herman and Kuzmich and all these people. Like they live with me. They know my house manager. They know my executive assistant. They know my team. Like they see it. And yet I
don't get jealous, by the way, of many places, but I have a slight like FOMO awesome. Of not living there. Yeah.
It's pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie. That's why I moved here. But what blew my mind is when I gave the early version of the book to these folks, right? And they came back and they said, I finally get it. And I couldn't understand why. Like, it's not, I literally gave them my SOPs, dude. Like I'm an open book. I just want people to buy back their time and to get results. You know, I literally gave Nick was like, we need to hire a house manager, right? He can afford it. Da, da, da. I gave him I gave him the job posting, the test project, and the full SOP, and told them Betty will train them. Literally, my Betty will spend an hour a week mentoring your person. And still didn't success, like it didn't work. And now he's like, I finally get it. So what I underestimated, you know, and why I'm happy I took this long to write it, because I think I wanted all these ideas to be really crystallized and have the case studies and the stories and all that stuff, is just how important it is to have a complete system that somebody can walk through in their own mind, right?
Yeah.
But I just truly believe every person listening, I don't care if you're starting off and you have 0 employees, man, if I would have learned this in my 20s, oh.
Yeah. You did do a good job in my opinion, of weaving in the stories that I thought were really interesting. Like Andy Warhol, the Andy Warhol stuff. I didn't know any of that.
Dude,
like
when
how
yeah,
how
talk
he
about
systematized his business and how he scaled it the way he did. Yeah.
Yeah. Like there's all these people that you admire that if you actually, and they wouldn't know, see, this is saying it's unconscious competism on that factor. Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, like all the famous people, but everybody, they've perfected being a time trader. That's why I started with that philosophy, right? And you don't end up house manager, Oprah's day. I write about Oprah's day in the book. Like, it's pretty bougie. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I wake up at 8 and I meditate. It's like, but I also, now that I know why she does that. And she absolutely will get the results and build her thing bigger, because she's creating the space for her to just be, right? Like, this is why the time and energy audit, that's like, there's a lot of stuff I'm excited about people like playing with and trying, but the one of the biggest impacts in my life has been stacking things that light me up, that make me an incredible amount of wealth. And because I don't do things, there's literally one meeting. I was looking with my assistant. There's one meeting in my calendar right now that's yellow. It's not red, it's yellow. And it's with a group of people I collaborate with. And I think I know how to make it green, but if it doesn't turn green, I'm taking it out. Like, I'm literally going to hire somebody to go to that meeting. I ain't going anymore. Okay. And so for the most part, I wake up, and when I do the work stuff, the creativity stuff, it's just green. It's just, and it builds. And like, that has a impact externally that's probably 3x. Like, I just feel when you create from that energetic source, right? And like Elizabeth Gilbert talks about this in her book, Big Magic, or like, you know, whatever faith you're in, it's part of it. Because I don't go from like a green to a red and a green to a red, a red and a green, and it's just all green. Like, there's no dollar ROI on that you can point to, but I'm telling you, it's big.
Yeah.
So there's a pure, like, just dollar ROI of like buyback rate versus get time back, and then trade it up and fill it with things that make you more money. But then there's also the energetic amplification of doing things that light you up back to back to back to back, and how that shows up in your projects, how it communicates to your team, et cetera, that I think is, it's like a 201 level. It might be even a 301. It's not a 101. Yeah. So there's level. The book is like, it was my attempt to just distill it to the foundational stuff, because I go deep on all those areas, way more with my clients. Because to me, there's ways to really, amplify it, that you got to start. You got to just.
Did you have to chop a shit ton?
70%.
Yeah. I keep hearing stories like it was like 70,000 words to start or something like that.
Dude, I was like 120, I think, and I'm down to 49 or 48,000. And my editor, Noah, I love him. He got on a call with me and he goes, I'm paraphrasing, but it sounded to me like, hey, let me tell you let me explain the difference between a university textbook and a bestseller. Right? Because like, I'm a frameworks guy. I have templates and systems for all of this. So I just wanted to give. And I appreciate, like, this is the collaboration we have, which is really great, was he's like, look, like, you got to understand, we got to write for this person. But I'm like, yeah, but I also want to support this person. So he forced me. He said, okay, well, out of all of it, what works for both?
Yeah.
What works for the person starting off and the 9-figure CEO?
Yep.
And I was like, okay, so that's why I had to make choices on some of the frameworks I taught for audit, transfer, fill, and other things.
I think you nailed that. In my opinion, it's exactly that. That's exactly what I was feeling. It's like, it's fundamentals. I say all the time to the front row dads, I go, it's not always about learning something new. It's about learning something true. And your book was both. It was like, oh, I need to go back to this fundamental But thank God he put a new spin on it, because I have this novelty piece to it as well, either by the way that you named it or described it, or and how clearly you articulate like how to execute on it. I'm like, oh, I appreciate that nuance. Like I could do this similar exercise at my next meeting, but I'll just use Dan's framework because that's fresh. And so, but yet it's still rooted in these basic principles. So you did a good job with that, in my opinion. I want to talk about your kids for a minute, Dan. This part really intrigues me. I really wish that I could just follow you around for a week and watch how you both model, but then engage with your kids. And here's what I'm interested in, and I'll see if I can articulate the question properly. And I'm also going to tell you that I'm carrying forward a conversation we had amongst parents for my 13-year-old's school, who's in, you would dig this, dude. We should go offline at some point and I'll give you the deeper dive. But Tiger, my 13-year-old, is in a school started by front row dads called Peak. And dude, they just came back from Nepal, hiking in the Himalayas, bungee jumping off the 10th.
That's part of his school.
That's what they did. Yeah. 3 weeks in Nepal. Dude, yeah,
that wasn't my reality.
It was right. Not my reality at all, by the way. And we also have parent meetings for the school where all the parents have discussions about how they can behave, not how do we control the kids, but what's our influence? How are we changing? What is our philosophy? And so on and so forth, right? So it's massive personal responsibility from the parent. Now, here's what came up yesterday. Teaching versus allowing them to learn on their own. So like, here's how life works. Here's the framework. Here's how you set a goal. Here's how, right? Like, here's the path. Let me teach you the framework. And then the other one is like, let them figure it out. Let them bump, skin, fall, right? And learn. So there's no doubt that there's an appropriate place for both. But my question is, in your world with your kids, how much are you pulling them aside and saying, all right, let me tell you this principle, right? This concept, this idea. And interestingly, kind of a tangential question is, how much of the book might you be teaching your kids? So maybe I can like sneak that question in here of like, is there stuff in this book that you're already starting to teach your kids? But really the question, if I zoom out a little bit, is more to do with how much are you instructing and how much are you just letting them be on their own? Because honestly, growing up in trying to fill the shoes of Dan Martell might be really tough for a 9-year-old and a 10-year-old when dad is so accomplished and does so much and so many people admire you. And
yeah,
dude,
yeah. This dude, you're getting me emotional because I'm that passionate about it, because that whole like fear of like, I don't want my kids to feel like they have to become anybody to please me. Like that would crush me. That's why I'm like, I'm tearing up. But because I was very aware of that growing up, and I'm super grateful for just like the coaches and the journey that I went on to be like aware when I had kids. Like, I'm glad I didn't get married when I was 28, because man, if we had kids then, completely different story. So later on, I brought this philosophy. So I could probably write a book on just this, because I've got some deep thoughts on it. Few things.
Bookmark. Let's maybe we write that together one day. This could be the
first time I've ever said it. Yeah. I personally tell them frequently, their achievements don't impress me, and none of that is required for me to love them. I say that. Okay. So when they come to me and they're like really proud about, like, my kid just built a tech deck, like skateboard thing out of cardboard, even though he got all the plastic real version at Christmas, he wanted to create it. I'm like, dude, I am so like super impressed with what you did. But what I'm most impressed with is, and I always praise the journey. That's the big thing. I praise the effort. I love that you spent 3 hours on this, right? That you took time. You probably could have been watching TV or doing something else, and you like dedicated to your passion. But I want you to know, like, I love you no matter what. This is cool, but you're just a cool kid anyways. So that's one, like, very deliberate conversations about that. Number two, if you ever meet my kids, just say, tell me about what your dad, what do they say? I tell them, I ask them if I can tell them about them. So what that means is, and I try to do this in people in general, is just like, I tell them about their giftedness, right? Or in my language, I call it their Jesus inside of them. I want to tell them about just who they are. It's still like, it's funny because like I do it probably every 3 days. I'll, you know, as I put him in the bed, I put him in bed every night. And, you know, I'll be like, Max, can I tell you about you? And he's like,
That's so cool.
I don't want, and I'm like, just one thing. Can I just one thing today? He's like, okay. And they sit there and they're so, and it's so funny because I'll be like, you know, today when you did this thing, you are so good at that. Like the way you got all the kids together and did this thing. And, you know, I just see so much leadership in you. And like, I just wanted you to know that, you know, that is who Max is in my world. And you're just an incredible person. And when I'm talking, man, as much as they're frustrated, because again, they're just like, don't tell me about me. I'll FaceTime and do this with them. He goes, he's just sitting there. It's this fucking so cute. His breath is just like, okay, yeah. Okay, thanks. You know, like, and I'm like, he's getting it. Right. Mm-hmm. And then I go and I do the same thing. Noah's so funny because he'll come into the bedroom at night when I'm putting to bed and he goes, don't tell me about me. And I go, I won't, buddy. I ain't going to do it. And then after we read a book or something, then I put him to bed in his room and I'm like, hey, is it cool if I just tell you one thing? And he's like, okay. And it's just, I don't know. That's a big thing. And mentors taught me that stuff. I'm a big, you know, I used to be super worried, John. This is, I hope resonates with a lot of people because, you know, I knew I was going to grow up in a completely different lifestyle. Right. Like I'm literally just signed an agreement to go and charter a super yacht in Croatia. My kids are not living the same life as me. Right. They've been on private jets. It is not the same scenario. So I was worried because like, you know, there's a lot of literature around like 12, 13, you do these like journeys and transitions. And like, I was worried, like, you know, kind of Ben Greenfield style. I don't know if you know, Ben did this as
Sure.
2 boys. They like threw him out into the woods and said, you got to get home, and like drove back like 16 hours in the one way, dropped them off and said, we'll see you maybe tomorrow. I was worried I'd have to do that. Good news is you don't. Here's what I mean by that. Allow the world to be hard on your kids. Please do that. Please, like parents, do not, man, when I was going to pick up my kids at, daycare when they were like 3 or 4 or whatever. And I sat there and I watched the amount of parents tie their shoelace, zip their jackets up, grab all their stuff, put it in their backpacks. And I would sit there and just stare at them. And I refused to do it. And I even had to pull some of the educators aside and have a conversation with them. Because I'm like, look, this is ridiculous. Their little fingers work, their brains work. What I'm asking them is not complicated. And you're actually handicapping them by doing this stuff. And I know why you're doing it. Some of them will be like, well, we're doing it to help out. No, you're doing it because it's easier. You're doing it because you want to get home and you want to get the kids out. And it's easier for you to just help and get them out so you can move on to cleaning up and going home. I get that, but it doesn't actually help. Don't do it for my kids. My house manager, same thing, dude. Like I probably have coached her up 7 times. Okay. And it's little stuff. She's not like, the kids take a big turd in the toilet. She's not allowed to flush the toilet. Sounds crazy, but she's not. Why? They should learn to flush the toilet.
Right.
So, and when I would catch her because I'd see it in the morning and I'd wait for them to come home. But then Betty would flush the toilet. And I was like, no. She's like, you really want me to leave it there? I go, absolutely. I want the kids to learn that you work for me. You work for Renee. That you do not work for them. Don't make their snacks. Don't pick up their bags. Don't clean their rooms. You can do their laundry. Okay. Like the clothes has to be clean. Other than that, they're incredibly capable because again, I was worried I was going to raise these little entitled brats. So I just learned, let the world do what it needs to do and let them live in that. So like when my kids fall and hurt themselves, like I will be there to support them. Like people hear this and they're like, oh, Dan sounds like such a cold-hearted father. I know, like there's zero part of me that's concerned about that because I know I'm also the dad that when my son came down this morning, he comes right over to me and I'm sitting there reading and he lays on me. He's huge now. He's 10, he's 6'1", he's big. And he lays on me and I will lay with him and I will not move or ask him to get up until he's ready. And I've been doing that with them since they were babies.
Both hey, how tall is he?
Max. He's 5'1" and he's 10.
Jeez. Holy cow.
Dude, he's huge, man. he kicked
I was
my
5'1" in high
machine,
school.
Dude, he's like, my buddy has a 13 or 14-year-old kid and Max is bigger than him. And what's funny is he kicked my coffee cup, and my other son Noah sleeps in, and you know how moms are like, don't make noise, the kids are sleeping. And I'm laying there with him, holding him, and he kicks it. He's got these friggin' size 10 feet already. And I go, watch, Mama's going to come downstairs and tell us to be quiet. Right. And she comes down into the room, and, and I'm laying there with him, and she goes, why are you guys making so much noise? And me and him just crack out laughing. And then she just can't help it because her heart's melting. Like, Max is laying on me and we're laughing at her. I go, it's not my fault. Max kicked it with his huge giant feet. And then Renee came over. And so, like, this is the thing, dude, is I will slow down and be present. I will allow the world to forge my children's character. I will not on purpose create a scenario where they misunderstand the level of privilege that we have. And I'm incredibly intentional. Like, when they were little babies, I would, in my calendar, all the play times. When you say, like, do you teach them the principles? Yeah, I wrote them down, though. I actually asked myself, what does it mean to be a Martell? Right. We have family values. We actually refined them recently with Chris Smith of the family brand. Right. So we have them on our wall, and we use them when my kids are fighting. I say, come on over here. And I point at them. See that one there? Tell me how you're doing that the way you guys are acting right now. Right. So, like, to say these principles in the book. So here, you want to hear something funny? My kids are now making fun of me because they hear me talk about this so much that they recite it. So they're literally mimicking me. The other day, they were like running around like, you got to buy back your time, or like, So what I've learned a long time ago,
dude, that needs to be caught on film. That would be the best ad.
Oh my gosh. I have a picture of Noah. This really touched my heart. I signed a copy for Todd, Herman, and I'm driving over his house, and Noah's with me, and I look over, and Noah's sitting there, book's open. He's on chapter 2, and he's reading it. And when we get to Todd, he looks at me, he goes, who's Stuart?
Oh yeah.
He read the story. Like,
that's cool. That's cool.
And he goes, is he real? I go, yeah, he's one of my clients. He's like, did he really have a panic attack at Disneyland? I'm like, yeah, remember that Disney, like, we were there. And he's just like, so, like, I think that's neat. They actually started asking me for bedtime. We actually read the book, which sounds a little egotistical and but they don't like it anymore. We did it for a bit. We did it for 3 nights, and then they realized it wasn't a picture book, and they were good, which is fine. Like, I'm not, it's funny because, like, I allow my kids, I have this, like, kind of directly, like, I have a correlation of the older they get, the more I expect of them. Right. Yeah. And I think it's hard for parents because they grow so fast that you're like, you still think they're a 3-year-old. Like, my dad, and I love him, Fit Vic, and he would tell you himself, I think he still thinks I'm a teenager. He still asks me questions as if I'm a complete moron in my life. He literally asked me the other day, he goes, what are you doing with your investments? And I was like, Dad, I have a team. Oh, yeah, you got a team, eh? Well, do they look at this and this and this? I go, they're professionals, Dad. Yeah, but I mean, professionals. And he's like going off, but it's funny because, like, I know where it comes from. It's a parent that loves, right? Yeah. And for a long time ago, it pissed me off. Like, till I was in my 30s, like my 20s, I used to get so mad. And I'll tell you a funny story. I got so mad one day. I called my other brother, Pierre, and I called him. I said, hey, does Dad do this to you? Pierre's I talk about in the book, but he's a home builder. And he goes, yeah, but what I did is I just brought him on site one day to show him the buildings we build and to walk him through it. Cause my dad loves that stuff. And he goes, Dan, I don't know if you'd be willing to do this, but you should just probably show him your bank accounts. And I'm like, what? He's like, take screenshots of your bank accounts and send it to Dad.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there. I remember the moment I was sitting my butt was up on the table. We had like a bench table, and I was like sitting up on the bench table, and I was like on my phone talking to my brother. And I went into my bank accounts and I screenshotted them all, and I just texted them to my dad. And I said, I don't know if you find this interesting or not. I just wanted you to know that I'm okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't have to worry.
Dude, how do you respond?
John, I made it worse. I made it worse. I made it 25 times worse because now he's worried. What if you lose it all? And I'm like, oh my, but again, I now I've learned this, like that's his conversation with himself. It's not mine. Like it's, but it was kind of funny because I think my brother, he gave me the same thing he did to like ease my dad's constraint or concerns. And then mine made it worse. So, but it's just a thing. So like even that feeling that he brings into my life, right? This like makes me feel like through his questions I hallucinated. My hallucination is that he didn't he didn't trust me, or he didn't think that what I was doing was right or whatever. Right. It's like, and I realized that I could do that to my kids. So for example, I'm very sensitive to when they make a decision to question the decision. Right. Because I'm a coach. That's what I do all friggin' day. So like, it's my default standard to go, did you consider this? Did you consider this? But as a parent, your kids don't hear, did you consider this? Because I care about you. They hear, you think I'm an idiot. You think I made the wrong decision.
Yep.
So what I try to do instead is bring it through the lens of like, even like a rosebud thorn. So like, here's a great example. Last Saturday, I brought Noah to soccer. Afterwards, all the parents, I heard them, hey buddy, you did good, but you know what you could have done? You could have done this. You could have done this. This guy did this and you didn't do that. And I'm sitting there and I go, okay, that's interesting. I get it. That's what parents do. I get in the car and I go, hey buddy, what are you really proud of? Like, what did you do really well? What's an area that you see the difference?
Yeah.
He told me.
Right.
And I created the framework and the container. I didn't criticize him, because if I tell him that, he goes, my dad thinks I'm a bad soccer player. If he tells me that, I just go, you have the ability to assess yourself really well. Cause I didn't even see that one. Nice job, buddy.
One of my favorites is, tell me what you know about blank, or tell me a story about, or tell me what you want to know about blank. Any of those, like jump in the car with Tiger and I'm like, tell me what you want to know about this. I tell
that's a way better conversation than like, what did you do today? Or they're like, nothing much.
When he was 9 years old and we were hiking, I was doing a speech in South Dakota and we went to do this big hike, and it was like a long, like 6 hours, and he's probably 9 at the time. And I go, tell me what you know about sex, and I was like, tell me what you want to know about sex. And I prompted him a little bit, but dude, it turned into a 45-minute conversation, super honest. Like I said, I'll tell you, everything age appropriate, in my mind, but honest, right? Like I had a great conversation with him, but it all started with tell me what you know about it, and then tell me what you want to know about it. So tell me a story about, all those are good. Dude, I wish we had another hour, but I predicted that I'd feel that way at the end. There's a very rich life that you have led for yourself and for your family. There's no shortage of things to talk about with you. The book is awesome. I hope all the front row dads, excuse me, get a copy. I know it'll make a difference to their families. I know it'll help them to be healthier. I think they'll enjoy their life in more significant ways. And I think it's also it'll give the men a chance to practice and model behaviors that are sustainable for their kids. One thing at some point I want to ask you about is the global impact that this may have generations to come, but for another time. And I will just say that I believe it's significant, which is really where we started this conversation. I believe this is a significant book, especially for men in our community that are entrepreneurs and business owners. There's so many gems. I've got my mind map right next to me. I was sitting in the sauna this morning, listening to it, taking notes.
Dude, any of that stuff. If you can you just, I'm a feedback guy. Take pictures of it, send it back to me. Like this is my love language. It's the F word. It's in the book. I have an abnormal high tolerance and encouragement for feedback. So any pictures, and anybody listening, if you like, people are like, Dan's book, go get it and take a picture of the book. I would be blown away and appreciative if you just like actually opened it to the page of the thing that mean the most to you, or if you like digest it, or Just send that to me,
Yes.
because it allows me to synthesize and then use that as I share the story. Because dude, this is something that I'll be doing for a really long time, is talking about this philosophy.
They can get the book anywhere at this point. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. Buybackyourtime.com is where they should go to then be redirected, because two things. One, you will now be pixeled. So now I have a way to communicate with you through ads. But more importantly, honestly, is I put a whole workbook behind the scenes, because as I mentioned, like my editor's like, let's write a best-selling book. And so I all the frameworks are templates in the workbook and other stuff I put in there. So you can download those all at buybackyourtime.com.
Your voice has been echoing all morning with done 80% done by someone else is 100% awesome. Dude, I literally can't shake that phrase out of my head, man. It's
these mantras, right? Like even audit, transfer, fill. Like I hope people like really take that. You know, my favorite one though is that if you don't have an executive assistant, you do. It's you.
Yes, that's right.
Horrible at it, and you're incredibly expensive.
Yeah. Dude, there's so many ways your book is already starting to impact me, and it will continue to do so. And I'll give you that feedback along the way. Thanks for being here this morning with me. Thanks for the conversation, the time. Love who you are, man. Thanks for being here.
It's an honor. Appreciate you, man.